Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV. Velocities in Music, the best kept secret in music reviews. 2.5 years ago, Tom, we reviewed an album that we really liked when we reviewed it, but I tell you what, I could not put it down afterwards. It has stuck with me and has been one of all the albums, of the almost 700 albums we've reviewed, it's been one of those albums that I cannot stop coming back to since then. That album was Tim Hecker's Rave Death 1972. His new album, Virgins, just came out, and it's of a similar vein of Tim Hecker's Rave Death 1972. Tim Hecker is a Montreal-based electronic musician, and I don't like that moniker, or that description of his sound.
It doesn't really describe it, no.
No, and the best thing that I've ever heard is sound artist. And that is totally what Tim Hecker is. He is a sound artist, because what he actually does is he takes a lot of acoustic instruments, whether that's piano or harpsichord, or a virginal, which I learned was some type of harpsichord, which may or may not have driven the name of this album, Virgins. And then he takes a lot of other just sonic features, Tom, and you can maybe speak a little bit more with a little bit more precision to this, but distortion and feedback, and he does a lot of editing of the sound to provide these what is truly ambient music without vocals or really any instrumental arrangements, I would say. And he provides these loops and cuts and pastes to provide structure in an organized manner. He edits the volume in ways where it's really stark, contrasted volume shifts. That he modulates the volume time. I'm out of my element here. Help me out, buddy.
Okay, so no, you're totally right. You're on the right track, and really what it comes down to is that the production is as much a part of the music as the actual sounds he's using. A lot of the times production works as kind of a vehicle just to present or portray an idea that's already been somewhat crafted out or established in the songwriting. Here, the production is a crucial part of the songwriting and the song structure, because without these production techniques, he wouldn't be able to create the soundscape that he does. He wouldn't be able to move things around like he does. And it's exactly what you said. It's taking these real live recordings of organic sounding instruments
and then live sounds almost.
And then just processing the crap out of them. Just distorting them to the point where they're so overblown that you can't recognize what was actually originally recorded. Then processing it some more and moving it around and throwing some other stuff in there. But what really impresses me about Tim Hecker is that while he has that approach, he doesn't let it get out of control. He doesn't end up like an excited little puppy, like, oh my gosh, I'm distorting things so much.
So many puppy toys.
I want to just distort it even more. There's still a lot of subtlety. There's still a lot of layers. It's tactful. There's even a lot of melody dripping out of this album, more so than you would get in Rave Death 1972, which isn't necessarily a good or bad thing. Just depends on what you're listening for. Because what I really liked about this album is when you get just some of that ambient, I want to say mess, but that kind of has a negative connotation. You get those very thick, kind of grating textures that don't really seem like they have a lot of rhyme or reason to them. Obviously, they do to the artist, but to us as the listener, it's kind of our position to try to figure that out. Try to find some kind of reason behind that just audio assault. But then, right when you think you're starting to pick up on that, it'll kind of shift into something maybe a little softer, and maybe there'll be some piano melody coming out of the mix, like on track 7, Black Refraction. There's a distinct piano melody, and it's something a little bit more to latch onto before it goes into some of the more abstract compositions.
And his melodies are so potent, and I think it's the contrast, because you go through a lot of time where there's not a lot of significant melody. It's all distortion and just atmosphere that you're hearing, and then all of a sudden a line of piano melody will come out of the mix, and it's like, holy crap, it just strikes at you. This album does this incredible job of having this presenting this dichotomy of just absolutely terrifying sounds, and juxtaposing that with really warm, inviting sounds. And it's something that I find, throughout as I listen to this album, that's what brings me in, is that within one track I could feel both terrified and kind of warm and safe at the same time, and it's just how he oscillates the sound.
And what makes that so awesome to me is that when we talk about things like that in like pop or rock music, when we talk about that terrifying aspect and how it provokes emotion within the listener, then we identify things about what they're doing with song structure. We identify things about what they're doing between the interaction of like a drum and a bass or a guitar and a vocal layer. That's not even an element here, but he's still able to pull it off with more potency than any real pop or rock musician. And the reason for that is because he's just got so much detail and focus on the actual frequencies he's using, the actual notes and those combinations. I mean, the album opens with the track Prism, and right away you hear this just kind of grossly dissonant and like modulated chord, but you can barely identify it as a chord because it doesn't sound like it's something being played or strummed or anything like that. It's just being presented to you as this wall of differently layered frequencies that are using kind of the same timbre, and then they come back at you, they're modulated a little bit, the whole thing changes, and then it shifts into something else.
Yeah.
And so it's really working with as little as possible and doing the most with it that you can.
Yeah. And one thing that you pointed out earlier is that this album definitely has a more melodic presence than Rave Death 1972, and I think that the reason for that is its use of piano. It's a little bit more liberal here.
Yeah.
I see a lot of contrast in the sound, which is what I was talking about with the different moods that you're hearing earlier. But I find it to be just when you hear the piano, it really grips you.
Yeah.
And it's hard to just not fall in love with this sound. When Virgins is playing, I cannot stop listening to it. It takes over my psyche. I can't concentrate on other things because I'm paying attention to all the detail that Tim Hecker put into this. Whether it's how he's producing a certain set of sounds that he's pushing in front of us, and and I just feel that this is just some of the most artistic music out there. You see a lot of these artists like Bjork or Kate Bush or other solo artists that are doing these really, really artistic pieces out there, and none of them are as gripping as this, and this guy's able to do that just with just instruments and production without any vocals. And I think that that's just truly brilliant. Sound artist is the perfect way to describe what Tim Hecker is doing on Virgins. I honestly believe, of all the music that we listen to, this is some of the most special. This, like, Banksy is my favorite modern day artist because he defies actual human law to go out and create graffiti art, and he brought graffiti as this actual medium in which art can be conveyed, and Tim Hecker is doing that with distortion. He's doing that with just sonic structure, and really taking what is and defying what our understanding of electronic music, what that actually entails, and the fact that he has that level of mastery behind his art, I think proves that he's on the forefront not just of music as like an artistic medium, but art in general. And that's part of the cool thing of listening to music in different art forms, whether that's movies, art, music. Just finding those artists that rise to the top, and Tim Hecker's one of those.
Another thing I really liked about this album is that it was a completely different experience listening to it through headphones or on actual speakers. I listened to it probably about equally on both of those. I spent a lot of time this last weekend writing at my computer, and I would put this on because it's easy to write to music that doesn't have vocals because you don't get distracted with language or anything like that. And when I'm listening to it in headphones, I'm really paying attention to the spatial aspects and how things move from one channel to the other, and how they're produced and how they blend together. Exactly. Right. But when I just crank up my speakers in a room, the sound just fills the room, and you don't get as much of the change from channel to channel, left and right, but you get a bigger sense of the overall composition.
Yeah, and it's equally as powerful.
It is, but it's almost a different experience. So I like that there's several different ways of listening to this and taking it in.
What do you think you're going to give this one, Tom?
I'm giving this an 82.
I'm slightly higher than you, but that's only because I absolutely love this album, and I love Tim Hecker and what he's doing. 85.
All right.
So, mid-80s from Velocities in Music, which is the mark of a must-listen album. I mean, if you guys are at all into crazy, dark, or atmospheric ambient music, or just like artistic music in general, Virgins is an album you should go check out immediately by Tim Hecker, and let us know your thoughts and experiences at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. As always, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and let us know what albums from 2013 you'd like to see us review on this YouTube channel. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.